Where can I find cloud information and news? The answer to that question may surprise you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Cloud Computing Insider. This channel explores the ins and outs of cloud computing without an agenda or following into the narrative set by big tech marketing. We look at what works and what does not, and the actual value of this technology in a balanced and information-forward way. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, and comment. I'm your host, David Linthicum, author, speaker, cloud and AI architect, top 10 cloud and AI influencer, B-list geek, and over-the-hill mountain biker. Let's get started. So this is a question I get a great deal as to where I go and get my cloud computing news and knowledge and other things, just to keep up with the market, where the technology is going, movers and shakers, what's occurring, and the ability to kind of understand the state of things so I can report back to you guys as to what it is and what my opinion on that stuff is. So what I've done, I'm going to create a video on where I go for information, and maybe you want to use those sources as well. So let's get cracking. So the first and my favorite source of information would be podcasts. And these are podcasts that, by the way, many of them wouldn't have me as a guest, but I still listen to them and I still enjoy their content. So a few of the ones that I listen to are going to be the Cloudcasts, and it's a vendor-neutral show that dives deep in the industry pros on cloud, DevOps, and distributed systems. And it's been around for a long time. I've had probably 5 different podcasts, and 4 of them cloud podcasts based on my previous employers and what we're trying to promote and work on, things like that. These guys have been out there for a long time. They're industry insiders. I think they worked for Red Hat and then started to work for IBM. At least one of them did. But I find their podcast fairly pragmatic and easy to listen to, and I would put it into your podcast reader so you can keep up as well. The other one would be Screaming the Cloud, which is hosted by Corey Quinn, and it's an entertaining, but it's a bit irreverent and always insightful about cloud trends and realities. So I like the fact that they integrate news and comment and punditry with humor, and I enjoy listening to that podcast, and I think you will too. The other one would be the New Stack podcast, which focuses on cloud native tech, containers, ecosystem news, and keeping it independent and honest as an informer. I like that. If you're looking to take a deeper dive into the technology, you're into things like cloud native development, things like that, that's going to give you a good summary of what that stuff is. And then finally, my podcast, the one you're either listening to now or watching on YouTube, and it's a Cloud Insider podcast. And what we try to do here is give you an open and honest forum in terms of how we're going to use this technology effectively, what's working and what's not. And I always try to be brutally honest, and I hope I'm going to be in your podcast reader as well. So next would be YouTube channels. And by the way, when people use the term podcast, normally they mean a YouTube show, and then obviously the audio streaming to the podcast networks. So I'm going to kind of use them interchangeably, but there are shows on YouTube that may or may not have podcasts or audio versions of them I think you should check out. So obviously this one, Cloud Insider YouTube channel, and we try to explain where the technology is looking to go. I already sold that in the podcast area, so we won't talk about that here. And then also Tech World with Nana, an amazing vendor agnostic visuals on cloud DevOps. And she's able to break down tough concepts in clearly understandable ways. And so big fan of her. She's been out there for a while, doing great stuff. And I urge you to check out her YouTube channel as well. And then the New Stack, and this is editorial analysis, interviews, and conference talks focused on cloud native, open source, real world use cases. And again, I would push them up as someone who's going to take a bit of a deeper dive into the cloud technology. The other ones may give you a 30,000 foot view of cloud computing and where the technology is heading. That's an example of one that takes it down a bit deeper. And if you're looking to take a deep dive in the technology, you may want to check that out. So Academind, it's ACADEMIND. Hopefully I said that right. And they take deep dives into cloud containers, continuous integration, continuous deployment. and they're focused on what works in practice. And I kind of stumbled upon this. I enjoy it as a show, and you can check it out on YouTube. Now, one of the things you should keep in mind as we go through these is that you're not going to see a lot of vendor-sponsored YouTube channels and podcasts in my list, or even some of the publications. And the reason is I'm not saying you shouldn't go and check those out. Obviously, they're one of the more popular shows that are out there because they have some marketing dollars behind it and promoting the YouTube channel and promoting the podcast. However, they have a tendency to be a bit salesy. Obviously, if you're listening to a podcast or a YouTube channel that's sponsored by AWS or Microsoft or Google, they're going to lean toward that technology. And I wouldn't think of them doing anything different. But they are sources of information. I would just say, go to them with the understanding that you may get a bit of a sell in the information that you get, and hopefully it doesn't make you lean in the wrong directions and make the wrong architectural choices. So you've been warned. So what about the magazines and online sources out there? Remember, there used to be magazines where you went to a news shelf and we got them. I remember going to the Micro Center, and they had the best tech newsstand around, and that's where we got our news before the internet was around. We read the article stuff, had stuff published in those systems, things like that. Obviously, everything's online now, but there's some good places to check out where you can get good cloud information. So the first would be the News Stack, and it's news analysis and insight. And this would be an independent, again, cloud native community. And they do a very good job, I think, of reporting the facts. I cite them many times in my articles. I get a lot of ideas for these shows and my articles for the InfoWorld blog, things like that. Speaking of the InfoWorld blog, I've been doing that cloud blog out there for about 13, 14 years now. And it does pretty well. And again, I try to cover this technology very much like I do here, with an open, honest, and pragmatic approach, and take a candid opinion as to where this technology is going and what you should consider and what you shouldn't. Next one would be TechCrunch Enterprise and Cloud, wide-ranging and real-world coverage of cloud business emerging startups and enterprise transformations. And so the TechCrunch stuff is basically, the Silicon Valley game. There's a lot of private money, private capital, private equity folks that are on there, starting companies, things like that, where the market's going. Some people like that aspect of the technology space, not necessarily taking a deep dive in what the technology is doing, but the technology and also its application in the market and how it's doing. And obviously, that's a great place to check out if you're interested in that kind of spin on the cloud computing technology game. Then finally would be D-Zone, DevOps and Cloud Zone. And it's a community-driven tutorial, case studies, and hands-on insights. And I do urge you to check them out. And it's a website. You can go read them, see the case studies out there, and see some real honest and good opinion on what's working in the cloud and what's not. Also, what's working with DevOps and what's not. And obviously, everything here is going to be peppered with AI because, everything's kind of shifted around the focus of AI. So in closing, I rely on a mix of podcasts, YouTube channels, and some blogs or articles, from a few sites that I trust. One of the things I found in looking around particular topics and subject matters like cloud computing, it's hard to get above the noise out there. There's so much marketing hype and so much paid influencer traffic that's out there. It's hard to figure out where you should be paying attention to and where your information should come from. So you need to make your own choices, but at the end of the day, I think you need to figure out your sources that are going to be the best for you, how you want to consume the information, whether you want to watch it, listen to it, or you read it. And like me, maybe a mix of all of the three. And then stay with those sources and keep at them. And as long as you trust them, I would keep relying on them. So this is going to be very important for your career as well as your success in the cloud computing world. So in other words, it's good to know the basics of what cloud computing is. And obviously, getting a certification or taking one of my LinkedIn learning courses or somebody's other cloud course is kind of the way to do that, to get your baseline of information. But the reality is you got to keep up game. And so you got to not necessarily be up to date as to the day, but understand where the trends are going, which ones you should watch, which ones have good application with business and which ones don't. There's a lot of information that's out there, and I think many people are making the wrong choices based on the fact that they're taking the marketing spin as truth. And I think that's going to be something that we have to kind of watch out for. So figure out where the truth lies, make your own decisions, and figure out the sources that you should be leveraging right now for information. So a couple of things, if I missed any resources that you think are good, put them in the comments. I'll mention them in the next one. We'll probably do an update of this about once a year. Also, everything I just mentioned to you and listed in this video is going to be in the description, so you can find the links there and go directly out to those sources if you want to. So that's it, short one this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos on this channel. Also check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100+ LinkedIn Learning courses, and of course my Generative AI Architecture course on Go Cloud Careers, my other YouTube show, AI Insights Innovation on the Keep Research YouTube channel, and finally my latest book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, you guys stay very safe. Later.